hello, everybody. Your second stream of the day. And of course, it is the debrief. How on earth are you doing? Let us know in the comment section below. Listen, we've got a bit to talk about tonight. We're going to really debrief what's going on at the minute. Listen, we did an hour-long stream earlier on, which was my breakdown of exactly what maybe the problems are at Leeds United. Even though we are top of the table, we want that longevity, don't we, throughout the season? We want to kick on, and we ultimately want to get into the Premier League. That's all of our goals as fans. And listen, you know, we might have different opinions as we might get onto tonight, but overall, everybody want that common goal, don't we? And that is to get into the Premier League. And I think some bits need to be improved on as a collective at Leeds United for us to get to that promised land. So how are you doing? Welcome along. Make sure you're slapping a like on the video. Make sure you subscribe. And I see Sid in the chat. I'm seeing a lot of others in the chat as well, disrupting my flow right now. Unbelievable timing. Yeah, we've got Sid in the chat as well. We've got a load of others, Rolling Wolf, etc., etc. Hello. Patreon members over there. You can become a Patreon member. Link in the description below gives you the opportunity to come on the show, the instant match reaction, and get involved in the WhatsApp chat, which is thriving right now. We have football prizes. Get involved, everybody. And our sponsor is IPM Group UK. Keep all of your CCTV and security needs in the Leeds United community, everybody. Okay, how are we doing, everyone? We're going to get into a few bits tonight. I'm joined by Oscar Marriott to start off with. Oscar Marriott. I need to start calling you Mazza. I need like some sort of nickname. How you doing, mate? All good?
Mazza. Yeah, to be fair, one other person calls me Mazza, and yeah, it's a long story. I call him Bazza in return, but long story, long story, that one. But I'm all good, mate. I'm all good. Decent Christmas, decent New Year. And yeah, it's just the reality. Football always brings your mood down in some way. Doesn't help that the darts aren't on anymore for a couple of weeks. That doesn't help my mood either. Mate, I'm all good.
I saw you tweeting profusely about the darts. So
yeah, you can't beat the darts. You cannot beat the darts.
I think even when I'm furious about Leeds United, you're still tweeting about the darts. So that's your hot water bottle time, Oscar. You know what it is, mate. You're turning the heating on. It's a lot of money, isn't it, mate? You need to keep those extremities warm. Yeah, hope you're all staying warm in this absolutely terrible English weather. And listen, without any further ado, we'd like to introduce the special guest on the debrief. It's my old man. It's Dad. It's Ian. How are we doing, Dad? All right?
Yeah, absolutely spot on, Conor. Yeah, loving it.
Good stuff. Yeah, Dad's obviously frequenting the Leeds platform when it comes to Generation Leeds, and I thought I'd just give you guys a snippet of Ian McGilligan on the show. So, guys, as I say, round up the likes, and we'll get into exactly what's going on. Conor, you've got a different haircut every time I see you. It's not, mate. It's down. Do you know what I mean? It's down. So, Danny says great panel tonight. Connor's dad will sort Melio out. Up, Dad. Yeah. So, yeah, good stuff. Okay. Well, I'm going to start with Oscar, and then we'll get on to Dad's thoughts, because I think the gentleman above me, who I'm related to, might lose his lid a little bit when it comes to certain personnel. Maybe not. Who knows? We'll wait and see. But Oscar, don't really know where to start, mate. Should we start with? I've got on the list Hull City breakdown, transfer updates, and Farke and Natter. I guess chronologically it'd be a good idea. And shout out Danny Cook as well, who's just gifted a one Leeds fan channel membership. Shout out to you, Danny. Should we start with the obvious, mate? Let's get on to the Hull City breakdown. Fire away.
Weird game, really weird game. It's one of those where I look at and think, in the first half, Hull could have been 2 or 3 up if had they finished the chances. I think there's some really poor finishing from Hull. Second half, we kind of came alive in spells of the game. In terms of Natter hits an absolute wonder goal. I think it's a crime. that goal won't get remembered the way it should do.
Yeah.
I think had we gone on to win the game, that goal gets spoken about. I think the fact it's so soon after half-time, I think it's like 30 seconds after the start of the second half. And then, great finish from Joel Perreault. Sorry, no, that's Joel Perreault was the third goal, wasn't it? And then obviously second goal, Bogle and James linking up again. But I think one thing we have been good at all season, no matter what, throughout has been defensively. We've defended superbly, I think, this season. We've conceded goals. I think that's more down to the person behind the defence. But on Saturday, the defending wasn't good either. The first goal we concede, yes, we can talk about Mele's passing it, but all round it's terribly defended. You're 6 minutes into the game, you're getting caught like that. It's shocking. That you don't see those kind of goals happen unless you're chasing the game sort of 5 minutes to go and you get caught on the break. That is a shocking goal to concede so early on in the game. Yes, these things happen, but then obviously second and third goals, set pieces. Again, we can look at Meslier on them, but there's no doubt Meslier's, I think, culpable for probably all 3 goals, but I've got to look at the defending as well within it. It's shocking, really. It's shocking we've not won that game. We've completely shot ourselves in the foot. We've done this several times this season. We did it on New Year's Day against Blackburn. I know we didn't speak after Blackburn. In fact, we haven't spoken for a while when I think about it. But you look at the Blackburn goal, again, a set piece. A team's starting to target us in those areas. I think there is a bit of an element of that. I think teams know we're maybe not the best on set pieces in terms of pure height. And that seems to be what teams are targeting. But it's so frustrating that Burnley and Sheffield United aren't having these kind of games. They aren't. And I think we're a better team than both of them. And I'll include Sunderland in that as well. They're not having these type of games where you're 3-1 up and drawing 3-3. We're not having those type of games this season. We're having too many of them. Not necessarily throwing it away that badly, but we're having too many off days. And in the end, it's going to cost us because at the minute, it's looking like a very tight 4-horse race for 2 positions at this moment in time. And I don't like the idea of that. I prefer the idea of us running away with it before teams can react in the January transfer market. And at this moment in time, we haven't made hay whilst the sun shines because it might not shine in the second half of the season.
Yeah.
That was a weird analogy. Was that a good analogy or not a good analogy? That sounded better in my head, that.
I sort of
sounded better in my head, that one. As I said it, I thought, no, it doesn't make any sense after that.
I sort of skipped over it. I thought I'll just leave it off that one. Macaulay said 2 people to blame: Meslier for his blunders, and Farke needs to take accountability for not changing his players to control the game. Your bug says, Conor, you called this a long time ago. Oscar, how long's this been for me, mate? Maybe 4 or 5 years, pretty much on every show we've done.
It's knocking on that, to be fair.
Yeah,
I mean, it is
Nathan,
definitely knocking on that now.
Nathan says, hi, Conor, Sheffield United fan coming in peace. The best signing we have made is Cooper in goal. It makes so much difference having a keeper that the defence trust. Dad, Ian for others. I'm going to start on you, Ian, aren't I? But well, look, I know we've had chats before on Generation Leeds about who's to blame here. You've watched the game. I know you've watched it back in particular for this show as well. It's hard, really. I mean, I've done a show this morning. I did a show the other night as well. It's really hard to try and sort of work around this at the minute. It feels like the finger is pointing really at sort of 2 people. And what I want to do is present something that LUFC data have put out. And Dad, I know you haven't got your specs on, so I'll read this out.
I'll put them on, Conor.
But guys, if you haven't seen this, LUFC data have just put this on, and it's quite interesting actually. Illan Meslier's performance numbers for Leeds United: 17th in the Championship for goals prevented, which is minus 1.73. 18th ranked for save percentage, which is what we did in the video this morning. Minus 39.24 goals prevented over the last 5 league seasons, which is actually a staggering stat, by the way. So nearly 40 goals in the red zone. 56 shots on target faced this season, 37 saves, 19 goals conceded, 14 clean sheets. And he's put at the bottom here, the stats suggest that Meslier should have saved 39 more goals than he has faced over the last 5 seasons. It's pretty damning numbers, isn't it, Dad? And it feels like what we've said from throughout, really. You build from the back.
Yeah. I mean, I'm absolutely boiling, Conor. It's hard to believe, really, isn't it? Here we are, top of the perch, and looking back over the last 5 or 6 games, we could have been so much further ahead than everybody else. It's inexplicable, really, where we're getting ourselves in a position where we did on Saturday, where we come back. It was a very, very poor performance in the first half. Hull, feasibly could have been up with 2 goals within 10 minutes. It's not all down to one man, you could look at that game and, you're looking at Meslier's performance and you could say he's culpable for 2, certainly, possibly 3 goals. The defensive unit really didn't turn up, I feel, from the highlights that I saw most of the game. And I just, honestly, I'm lost for words. I really am to try and explain how this came about. With 10 minutes left of the game and with 3-1 up against a very poor team, 22nd in the league, And here we are, 3-1 up, and somehow we managed to let that slip through our hands. I think it's absolutely damning on Farke that he should let that happen. And the bizarrest substitutions have all come on at 3-3 when we get a defensive dynamo like Gilabogi coming on, and it's like, I don't understand it. What did he expect us to lose the game? You were 3-3 up at that point. He sends him on after the event. Did he expect us to lose it? There just doesn't seem to be any straightforward thinking as far as I'm concerned with Farke at times. It's just beyond belief. And I'm still haven't come down from Saturday, Conor. I'm absolutely boiling about it. And Oscar's absolutely right. You get our 3 nearest competitors and they don't implode like this, And the oddest thing is we're going to come up against Sunderland and Burnley over the next few weeks and we won't implode. They'll end up putting performances against those teams. And yet when it comes to Hull and Portsmouth and teams of that ilk, we just don't seem to be able. We're not there. We're not mentally there to close out the games that we should be able to close out with any kind of problems. And Meslier is a big part to playing all of this. I've never been convinced about him as a keeper. He was a notch up on our previous Spanish dud that we had a long time ago. But why we don't take this position seriously at the club, I really don't know. I don't understand it. I don't know why we don't take it seriously, but continually we don't. And, at the end of the season, Conor, if we end up finishing in 3rd spot, there's every chance we could do the way this is going, because his figures are certainly not stacking up at the moment, Meslier, then, there's going to be hell to play. I'm very, very unhappy with the way it's going. And we sat on top of the league and I'm still feeling like this.
Yeah, it is a weird feeling. I agree. It's almost like, obviously, with what's happened with Blackburn and what's happened with the other day, it does feel, it doesn't really happen, Oscar, does it? It doesn't really happen. I mean, the biggest remembrance I can have when it comes to maybe a top of the table charge where it's turned around a little bit, it was probably when Sheffield United went to Aston Villa. I don't know if you remember the year that we went.
Yeah,
up. I think
3-3.
They went 3-0 up, and Villa got right back into it with about 10 minutes to spare, and Wilder, it did his nut, but obviously they didn't go on to win the league. But that's the only sort of comparison I can think of right now. I think, look, those LUFC, and it's reverberating around the Leeds community today. It is so crazy how much this is trending, how much people are interested in it right now when it comes to Meslier. Maybe it's because we're in the midst of a January window as well, mate. But how I look at it is, and those, we spoke about those statistics this morning. Last season, it was a minus goals prevented. We don't need to go over it again, but it was -5. Just for context, Victor Johansson went from a +5 goal percentage prevention last year. So he prevented 5 goals last season from going in, which can determine points. This season, he's already prevented nearly 10 goals for Stoke City. He was an open goal when it came to a £1 million transfer, went from Rotherham to Stoke. His save percentage is in the top 3 as well. But I think the most damning thing is the fact that all of the top keepers in the division, when it comes to the Blackburn keeper, the West Brom keeper, when it comes to the Burnley keeper, when it comes to the Sheffield United keeper, they are all at the top of the charts when it comes to goalkeeping. Because quite frankly, Oscar and Dad, obviously, you look at over the years, and Mads Hermansen at Leicester was in the top range when it came to all those data parts when it came to the goalkeepers last season, because your team aren't always on it. And when they're not always on it, when you're top of the league, when you're second in the league, because Hledaki was there as well last season, Ipswich's goalkeeper. But when you're not there, your goalkeeper bails you out of it. And Oscar, I'm struggling to see towards the back end of the season how this isn't going to hurt Leeds United, because I feel that you look at Preston, I think you look at, these are recent games as well. You look at Preston, you look at Sunderland, which is relatively recent, I guess. Norwich, in particular, for me, and I know a lot of people don't agree with that, but the penalty straight down the middle, I think that's just a.
But we say that like Norwich isn't like a obvious mistake, but you look at like your top keepers at this level. This is what we're talking about. We're not talking about just average keepers who make saves you expect to make. We're talking about the top keepers. Michael Cooper, for me, saves that penalty at Norwich. He probably prevents that goal against Blackburn happening on New Year's Day if we're being super critical. I think he deals with the initial ball over the top better than what Meslier did. I don't think he allows Blackburn to win that header on the back post, that caused all the problem in the first place.
But is it just, Oscar, is it just a culmination of a glaring error, a glaring outlier, a glaring anomaly of which Leeds just seemingly, they don't seem to think it's a problem. And I don't understand how data-ridden people can't see this, even at the start of the season with his poor season last season. When we're looking at it, when you look at all the data, it's happening again, and he's replicating the numbers again. And I can't for the life of me, for smart businessmen, but also Daniel Farke, for consistently picking him. And this is what I don't understand. If it's based on a meritocracy, mate, am I going absolutely mental here? I don't really know what we're talking about,
Well, the thing is, I'm not convinced Carl Darlow is the answer either. But it's not necessarily a case of saying, is he the answer or not? Is he going to be better than what Meslier is doing at this moment in time? And for me, I think the answer is yeah. Is it going to be loads better? Who knows? But I can't see how it can be worse than what the situation is at this moment in time in terms of the goalkeeping department. And we talk about things like playing out the back and this and that. But ultimately, at this level, you just want your goalkeepers to make saves. I don't think Michael Cooper is great with the ball at his feet, but he makes big saves. James Trafford, similar at Burnley. Burnley have conceded less than half the goals we have this season. Burnley aren't twice as good as us at the back. I don't even think they're better than us at the back. And it just shows the difference. The goalkeeper, of course, they play more defensively. They concede less chances from that, these different bits and pieces. But the big difference there is the goalkeeping situation. I think where Meslier maybe costs us goals, Trafford probably saves Burnley. Certainly Ellen Road earlier in the season, we weren't great in that game, but Trafford made several really good saves.
Statistically, he saved them 7 goals this season.
Michael Cooper, wow.
You saved them 7 goals this season, and currently Michael Cooper has saved Sheffield United nearly 6. That's points. That is points.
Well, that's 12 goals over a season. If we're saying we're halfway through, over a season, you're talking 12 goals. I mean, if you were standing the goalkeeper and you were told they're going to save you over 10 goals this season, you'd be saying, you'd be willing to pay millions upon millions upon millions of that. It's worth its weight in gold at this level in that situation. And what I found interesting is, obviously, you mentioned about Leeds not seeing this as a problem with Meslier, but it depends on who's making the decisions at the end of the day. In terms of, if you look at, say, for example, it's a different, slightly changing topic, but it's a similar kind of point. You look at Isaac Schmidt and Largi Ramazani, they've not played a minute in the last 2 games. And to me, that's very strange. That is it's not just rotation. Maybe it could have just been rotation against Blackburn. But for me, I'm not sure who's making the actual final decision at this moment in time. I'm not saying it's a problem, but it's hard to say, it's one of those with recruitment. I think it's a case of any club when it's not very clear who's making the decision. One person might think that goalkeeper's good, another person might think that goalkeeper's not very good, and it depends on that really. I think it's clear to everyone though that Daniel Farke is backing Meslier, and in some respect, you can say from a man management point of view that's good, but is it going to end up costing Daniel Farke or Leeds in terms of the promotion at this moment in time in a tight promotion race? Your goalkeeper can make all the difference. You can talk about how much better a footballing side we are than Burnley and Sheffield United. But when you've got things like the goalkeeper situation and not being the most clinical in front of goal, and the most clinical player we do have, Joel Perreault, it's a bit of a dilemma in terms of how we fit him into the team. Is he a striker? Is he a number 10? Is he a bit of both? That is what I look at and think, the other teams haven't got these issues. And you've got to look at what the other teams are doing. I mean, I don't know if you've seen... Conor and Ian. It says Enzo Lafay getting linked with Sunderland because he used to work with Reggie Labrie, and I'm thinking that would be a mad signing at this level. And I'm thinking these teams, Sheffield United, Burnley, and Sunderland can do a lot in this transfer market. They've got, they've sold big players in the summer and not actually necessarily replaced them. So it could be very, very tight, this promotion race, and something like that. But it's like, say, if we're not going to do any business, which I don't expect us to do, Dad, I don't expect us to do any business. I don't think that'll happen unless, there is a genuine, outgoing of which you think, wow, okay. But I don't think we're going to do any business. I think probably we're all aligned here. There's a thinking you're going to do business and is there a need to do business? It's 2 different questions, I think. But it feels right now like what Oscar's quite rightly saying is you are going to get the other team strengthening. And I have to move back on this a little bit because I've said, look, even if the other team strengthen, it's going to take time for them to, gain partnerships and a bit of synergy and cohesion between the ranks. That it did for Ipswich, though, to be fair.
It did
work.
It was
an instant hit.
But yeah, that is true. That is true. Mo was an instant hit. Was it Ali? I don't think he was that much of an instant hit. But you obviously had, I think, Sarmiento, didn't he? He came in January as well and flew, didn't he? So, but overall, I think the conversation here is, Dad, it's these marginal gains, isn't it? So if you get in Sheffield United, it looks like they're bringing in Ben Brereton Diaz. That looks like it's pretty much been signed, sealed, and delivered. Burnley have brought back Ashley Barnes and brought in another addition. It feels like it kind of narrows the gap a little bit when you've got a goalkeeper between the sticks who's doing what he's doing at this moment in time. I think that's the big problem. I think it's these marginal gains. Transfers, okay, right, fine. I mean, Farke's still talking about us having a young squad when we literally don't have a young squad anymore. It's the average age of 25. But if we're not doing any recruitment, I think the problem is with the squad originally right now, we have a gaping hole literally in the middle of the goal.
Yeah, but I think the solution for us is actually much simpler than it is for Burnley and Sheffield United and Sunderland, Conor, because we've already got a unit that's firing up front. You know, we're scoring goals, we're scoring more goals than anybody else. You know, if Sheffield United are bringing in Brereton Diaz and the other teams, they're having to bleed these players into the team, and that takes 3, 4, 5, 6 weeks before they get used to the way in which the team plays. You know, you buy a goalkeeper, the goalkeeper slots straight in. So for me, the problem for us is an awful lot simpler problem than our competitors have got. All we need to do is go out and buy a goalkeeper who's better than the present goalkeeper.
Is that the frustration? Is that the frustration right now? Because you've got goalkeepers who are out there who are available for £1 to £5 million. They're all out there. It's a good position to recruit.
It has to be. It's not going to blow the bank, is it? All we need to do is go out there and spend £2 or £3 million, and we're going to get a goalkeeper that's going to perform better than this guy at the moment. You know, and let's look at the season so far. What, we're 25, 26 games into the season, so we're actually past the 55, 60% point of the season already, and you can see how tight it is. You know, there's basically 3 points separating 4 teams up at the top, and we've got a squad which is way superior. You know, we've got 2 Premier League teams that have dropped down, but our squad is the envy of the other 23 teams in the league. You know, and the big gap we've got right now is this man between the sticks. He's a problem for us. And actually, this is the easiest solution for the club. We've got an awful lot easier solution to our problems than those other 2 or 3 just behind us. You know, all we need to do is make sure that we're cutting out these stupid errors between now and the end of the season, and we're going to gain 4, 5, 6 points.
Because it's a sickener, isn't it? I think it is a sickener when you look at that Sunderland game in particular, and now you're looking at this whole game. You're looking at it, it's a gut punch, isn't it, right now? Because you've got literally 6 points right there. You've got 6 points, and it's a complete. There's no other word to describe it apart from implosion. It is just how on earth we lost that game, and we were not at top gear. I thought we were poor at the weekend. You know, was getting 3 goals was quite surprising, even though we had a fair few chances, you know, but they were
remember, Conor, we've not lost these games, we've actually drawn them. So, you know,
yeah,
you know,
feels like a loss.
So we've dropped 4 points when you look at the Sunderland game and this game. So not 6 points, but 4 points. But still, true, yeah. When you look at the Blackburn game, you know, and, you know, we're all thinking, weren't we? You know, there we were. It was a very, very tough game. We get that. I wouldn't say it was a gift of a penalty. For me, it was a penalty. But there we are, 87th, 88th minute. We go ahead, we score. Fantastic penalty. We just need to see that game out. We see it out. And it's so Leeds, you know, we end up drawing the game. It's another 2 points. So you add that 2 points, and we, you know, can't really, you know, blame Melier for that one. It's a defensive issue. But 2 points lost there, 2 points lost at Sunderland, 2 points lost at Hull, 6 points, which we should have had right now, which creates a gap. And it's to me, it's inexplicable. I'm banging my head against the wall, and we're still top of the league.
I know.
But for me, this squad should be at least 6 points, just over those 3 games ahead of everybody else. You know, with this squad, we should be double figures ahead of everybody else. And it should be relatively comfortable. So then you start to look at the manager, don't you?
Yeah. Is that where it turns, Oscar?
Well, I look at the subs against Hull, and Ian mentioned before about Guy Vogie in terms of the timing of that one was just strange. I think the subs weren't neither proactive or reactive. They were
cancelled
after the
each
event.
other out, didn't they,
They
Oscar?
were after the event, weren't they?
They were cancelling each other out, basically. We had a forward and a defender. I mean, it was, what's going on, Daniel? What's going on through your head?
It just didn't make any sense at all. I think you look at the Blackburn game as well, in terms of we went to like a 3-5-2 towards the end of the game. Dan James was playing wing back. Max Verber was doing the same on the other side. And listen, if it had worked, we'd have said great subs kind of thing. But the reality was, we got a penalty. I think it probably was a penalty. But we weren't great against Blackburn. We should have won the game. We should have gone on and won it from 1-0 up. But that was a game that was almost gifted to us, and we didn't take the gift. We were similar against Hull. Look at the goals Hull gave to us. Sunderland as well, as Ian's mentioned already. I mean, this used to be the strong point of the Farke team as well. Last season, when we went ahead in games, we tended to win, or we tend to get a second goal and win the games. Yes, we had Rutter and Somerville last season and different bits and pieces, but that's suddenly become a little bit of a weakness of ours, that we can't hold on to leads all of a sudden.
Well, what I thought as well, Oscar, is just to add to that. I thought, the defense was. It's different when it comes to build up with Ampadu and Rodon. Now it's different. I think it's abundantly obvious, and I can't stand this whole notion, I have to say, of it's better us having Ampadu at the back and get rid of Stroud. I think at the weekend you're looking at it and you're thinking, Ampadu was, when you boil it down to it, Ampadu was struggling a little bit against Abu Kamara, I thought. But not only that, I just thought his awareness, his positional play was really poor at the weekend. And when you boil it down, he's a 5'10" player who's industrious, he's aggressive, he's combative, and he's a leader, and he's our captain. We need him in the middle of the park. And I think that should be a common understanding. Pascal is a brilliant player at this level. He has his dips, but doesn't every player. I think the defending at the weekend, I knew what was to expect afterwards, guys. I actually thought Verber's going to get absolutely hammered here, because even though Ampadu's had a poor game, even though Rodon have had a poor game, Verber's almost not the one right now who the Leeds fans are going to defend, obviously, with his potential January predicament. But I didn't think he was great. Verber definitely wasn't great, but the other two, I thought Bogle played well, but the other two were more than culpable at the weekend. I thought they were both poor.
It was just a mess.
Sorry, Oscar.
Sorry,
that, Conor. I mean, I take a bit of an issue with you about Bogle, really. I think you tend to give him a free pass because of his attacking ability. I mean, I was looking at those goals just on Saturday, and for me, he was indirectly to blame for at least two of them. So, is great going forwards. And maybe that's his teammates. I remember when I used to play football, I used to play at the back, and if I was attacking, if I was going forwards, everybody understood that there needed to be somebody covering the gap at behind, so maybe it's more of a team thing, but I'm not too sure about Bogle. Defensively, I'll be honest, he's a cracking player. He's definitely be a plus to the team, but there was at least two of those goals, if you have a look at them back again, where he could have been, and Tanaka as well, coming back, is covering, at times, when he was supposed to be assisting and coming back. There was a moment at some time in the second half, I was looking at the game when there was four Hull forwards, our three back players, and Rothwell and Tanaka were just idly coming back, and they were lucky not to score again at that point, Hull. So Bogle, yes, but at times, mate, is really needs to tune in a bit more at the back.
I thought it was a 4. Defensively, we were poor. I think it's a 6, as Ian said. I thought the two in front didn't do the job defensively. And what I will, just to defend Ampadu and Rothwell a little bit, is that I don't think they should have been playing. I don't think they should have been playing without Ampadu anyway. I think Ampadu is clearly the best of the midfield three at anchoring the midfield in terms of being that defensive linchpin, because you've seen in the games when Ampadu's come back, how much more it's added to Ampadu, to Rothwell's game, how much it's added to Tanaka's game. Tanaka obviously getting forwards more. It just seems bizarre to me. This idea that Ampadu at centre back makes the team better. It doesn't, for the simple fact, as Conor said, Ampadu's best positions in midfield, and we miss a lot in midfield from not having Ampadu in there. I still think Tanaka's our best midfielder because of how good he is on the ball, but I think you need balance around that as well. In terms of when you're asking Tanaka and Rothwell to do jobs that they're not natural at, you're going to get situations where against
Yeah.
decent teams, Hull are having a terrible season, but they have got some good forward players actually. Not players that are Leeds United standard, but the players that are good for the level kind of thing. Better than what you probably face most weeks from time to time. So it definitely exposes a little bit in that respect. But I think as a 4, it wasn't great at all in the back line. Bogle, I thought, going forward as ever, was really good, and I think he's getting more and more.
Going forwards. Yeah.
He's getting more and more influential by the game. Bogle in terms of in the attacking sense, but I think defensively, not just Bogle, but I think as a team, it was a bit of a worry. But I don't think it's something where I'm going to say we're suddenly a team that's awful defensively. I think over the season we're being really strong. I just think that game.
Well, no, you imagine if we had a bad defense with a man between the sticks.
Well, I think there's an element of fatigue as well. We played a lot of football. That back fours, other than Verber, has played a lot of football over the last sort of like 2 weeks or so. There's an element of that. We haven't really rotated the back line that much. But yeah, of course, if Melee had a lot to do, we'd concede a lot of goals.
Well, there's another one that I look at. I mean, I look at that Preston goal. I sat with you watching the game, Dad, and I look at that Preston goal, and I just cannot believe he's not kept that out the net, and that wasn't long ago away from home. So that's another one. It's another one to add to the catalogue. So Chris says, to me, if you back Farke, you back Melee.
Yeah, I mean, he's got a point. I mean, Chris has got a point there, but, he was very guarded, wasn't he, Farke, after the game. It was quite clear that he was blaming responsibility on the outcome of the game on individuals. But he clearly said that he wasn't going to publicly name who those individuals were or berate them in public. So
it's hard. It's
absolutely.
But it's that. I understand the changes. I understand this, that, and the other. You can't for the game state, and I'd probably have to push back on what Chris says here. I can't legislate for what Illan Meslier did on Farke. I can't just blame Farke for that. I know there's a proactive way of going about things, but that at the end was him.
That is true, but one thing is Hull gifted us goals as well, to be fair. I think certainly the third goal and I think the second goal as well, they defended pretty terribly.
We were poor. Leeds were poor, definitely.
I can't believe it was a 6-goal game, to be honest. I can't believe there were 6 goals in that game. Even watching back the highlights, it suggests a game of high quality attacking from both teams, but it wasn't really. It's just like both teams made crazy mistakes.
Yeah, they both kind of mirrored one another, don't they? I mean, when you look at the goals, one was a cutback from the byline for Hull. It was exactly the same for us. We knocked one back. Dan James knocked it in. I think their second goal was very similar, but and some good goals to boot as well. I thought. Is it Abu? I thought his finishes were very good. In all fairness,
I don't think he'd scored. By the way, I don't think he'd scored since he came up against Leeds. Which is
I know, but that's Leeds, isn't it, Conor? That's just Leeds. We've got a soft underbelly against teams like this. We come up against our direct competitors, and we're a different animal. And I just don't understand it. I mean, I heard you in some of your comments. I think it was the broadcast you did earlier on today. The 3 points after the game. I just don't know. I think sometimes we're there. You were talking about, is it a good idea to have a different team playing away from home? That's something I've not considered as to the team that's playing at home. I really don't know. We have seemed to have got it a little bit better over the last sort of 4 or 5 games in terms of playing away from home. That's good.
Yeah.
But I don't know. It just seems to me that whenever we come up against these lower place clubs, I don't know whether there's a mentality change, but we just don't seem to be at the races like we do for the teams that we know we're going to be in a game against. And when we are playing up against our competitors, we invariably end up finishing on top. I don't know what it is.
Well, Craig says, why do no media ask Farke about Melee in presses? All Things Coffee says, have a coffee on me. Thank you, All Things Coffee. Andy Duckworth is a Burnley fan. He recently subscribed to the channel. He comments quite a bit. Do agree, Leeds change keeper and you win the league. We, Burnley, do have the back sewn up. Farke a liability, as he should have changed this a month ago. Baffling from afar. Interesting. Melee is the difference between top 2 and the playoffs, says Dan.
That's a fact. That's an absolute fact, and we know it.
Well, technically, right now it is. Technically, that is, and Sonny's sort of backed that up. XG table, we have 13 points clear. You're never going to match your XG fully. That's never going to happen, but getting close to it. I mean, the amount we're top on so many data fronts, and for us to be a point ahead, it is quite disappointing. I mean, well, let's just move on to I guess the bench options and Ramazani in particular. Just wanted to get your thoughts on him. Solomon's coming into it a little bit. You probably have to look at him right now and say, he's the star going forward at this moment in time, isn't he? I think, if I'm being brutally honest with you guys, I think he is definitely Farke's man. I think that's pretty obvious, and that's fine. It's clearly who he prefers in that role, which is fine. Solomon's playing quite well right now. Aronson and James, for me, just look knackered. They look absolutely knackered. Peru was sort of completely out of the game, but you know what a goal does, don't you, fellas? A goal, and suddenly you've had a good game, and that's how football works, I guess. But for me, that front four isn't really conducive at the minute, and I still think there's a bit of tinkering to do in certain games as well. We've seen a lot of rotation happen with Daniel Farke, but styles make fights, and I think certain personnel at certain games should definitely be introduced. I mean, Dad, just looking at Ramazani in particular, sort of no minutes at all in his last two. It feels like at some point, him coming on with his pace, his delivery, his shot efficiency would cause teams problems, surely.
It's a weird one, isn't it? Because that seems to be the one part of the team. I don't know what you think, Oscar, where things are working really well at the moment. And it's weird, and it's a bit of a paradox. You mentioned those three players, Conor, and yet they've contributed over half the team's goals this season. So it's very difficult from Farke's point of view, being data-driven, to drop any one of those three, because it could potentially leave us with a problem in terms of how we're attacking in that game and how effective we are attacking. I agree. For me, Aronson just never stops running. I know he spent an awful lot of time on the deck on Saturday. Spent more time on the deck, I think, than he did upright. But the lad does put in a really good shift. He's very committed to the team. And maybe he could do with a rest. It makes sense. I'm sure he will have a rest against Harrogate. I think things are going to change. This is where we're going to see more of Ramazani. I'm sure he'll start the game. Nonto probably as well, and certainly the lad at the back, Darlow, is going to come in. So we will see a few changes, and who knows? That change. I'm hoping Ramazani will put a really good shift and score 3 goals, and Nonto will score a couple, and they stay in the team against Wednesday. But let's just see, he's got some good options there with the envy of 23 other clubs in the division when it comes to what we can do moving forwards. So, I'm positive about this area of our team. We're doing very, very well. We're outscoring everybody else. We're in a great position. And certainly as far as January is concerned, that's not a priority for me. People bang on about number 10s. I think we've got enough people here to cover that position. And I'm okay with it. It's quite clear where, the area of the team where I am not very happy, and we've already spoken about that. But certainly going forwards, it's working very well for me.
Yeah, I'm sort of in that camp as well, Oscar. I guess I think there's, for me, if we're only to make one addition this window, there's a glaring position of which we've spoken about. We need to do something in, and I felt that for about 5 transfer windows now. But the number 10. I guess, okay, Oscar, my position on the number 10 is, I feel right now, could we get a specialist in there? I did a video a little bit earlier on. I'm absolutely gagging for Julio Enciso. That would be fantastic. But what I will say is, I think in the squad right now, you've got Brendan Harrison, who's on 7 goals and 3 assists. They're the numbers. Me and you, he's not our favourite player. We know he could do more. We know his innovativeness is once again, his shot efficiency, his technical ability isn't of the highest level of maybe an Enciso. However, for me, when you're looking at it, I think you could transition a Solomon into the 10. He's played 10 before. He's got all the attributes. And this is what I always try to filter through, the attributes to playing a number 10. I don't feel you have to have 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 weeks training in the number 10 to be really efficient in that role. Nonto's played in the number 10 before and naturally inverts a lot and picks up the ball between the midfield and defence a lot on the half turn. And I think he has a lot of the attributes to suit that position. So for me, mate, you look at the number 9 as well. Some don't like Joseph, some love Joseph, some don't like Peru, some love Peru. I think we've got a good balance there right now between those two. For me, mate, a 2-prong question, I guess. What would be, if you were to have an option in January and we were only to get 1 signing, what would you go and do? What position would you go and get? And number 2, have we got players that can help Brendan Aronson out off the bench and actually go into that number 10 without going and doing one?
Yeah, I think if there's one signing in January, I think it's got to be a goalkeeper. I think that's the one that benefits the team the most, even if maybe in some areas we haven't got the best depth in the world. Maybe have one or two injury-prone players in key positions, but I think goalkeeper is the one that you say that's the one that's going to take you from A to B the most, kind of thing. I do feel that, and I think at the very least, you've got to have more goal competition in that goalkeeping department. I think Mellier's been too comfortable. Apart from 4 games under Sam Allardyce, he's been comfortably Leeds' number 1 since mid 2019, 2020, when Casilla obviously got the ban. It's a long period of time, this we're talking about. I don't think it's good for any team. I don't think any team, no matter how good your goalkeeper is, can benefit from having a goalkeeper having such little competition for such a long amount of time. And I think even if you train as hard as you want every single day, subconsciously a little bit of complacency is going to get in there. I don't care what you say. A little bit of complacency will get in there. If you know you've not got that competition, and I think to an extent, that is partly why Mellier's dropped off from where he was sort of 3 or 4 years ago when, I think the opinion on Meslier was different. Of course, there were still critics of Meslier back then. He was still making mistakes back then, but there was different parts of his game which were a little bit better. But anyway, goalkeeper would be the one.
You've answered. I gave you a 2-pronged question,
I know.
and you've gone off.
It's the second one I want to get into. The second one, the exciting one. So the second one, I agree. I think Solomon, if anything, I think he's better as a 10. I really do. I think he will be better as a 10 than a left winger. I don't think, with these injuries he's had at Fulham and then at Tottenham, and even before he moved to Fulham, I think they have hurt his speed, his actual, pure, speed kind of thing in terms of, the counter attack. I've seen him get outpaced by people like Joe Rowell this season. I'm thinking, that's not Manor Solomon that we saw at Fulham and the early spells at Tottenham. I think with those injuries, I think he is more suited to playing inside now. A little bit like Pablo to an extent. I know Pablo was a different reason. Obviously Pablo was in his mid-30s when he was playing for Leeds, but when he moved into that number 10 role from the right wing or the left wing, it benefited Pablo's game a lot. And listen, I don't think Solomon is in the same breath as Pablo Hernandez, by the way. I don't think anyone really in this team is in the same breath of that. But Solomon, I do think, is probably the most natural of all the options outside of Brendan Aronson. And I do think he brings a lot to our game. And the other element of that is it allows Largi Ramazani to play on the left. And then all of a sudden you've got Solomon and Ramazani combining on the left. Hopefully Junior Firpo going back as well. I also think Isaac Schmidt should be getting a chance in games like, say, Blackburn at home when the opposition's just sitting in. We don't really need to do a lot of defending. I think that's where you want Isaac Schmidt really in attacking areas rather than Max Verber and Sam Byram. Certainly based on what we've seen, in terms of in the few minutes he's played for us, I think he's looked really good, to be honest. But it's one of those things. But obviously, he's not a favourite of Daniel Farke at this moment in time, but certainly in that 10 role, I think Solomon is a contender. I think we've both said this season, Conor, we felt Nonto could be a contender as well, but I think Solomon is probably the one to look at more so and think, I think he would really benefit from playing inside. And then you can have that speed either side of him of James and Ramazani, or Ramazani and Nonto, James and Nonto, whoever you want it to be.
But as well, it's not this you don't need this hyper training to play in that position. You look at Brendan Aronson. You look at Brendan Aronson. Brendan Aronson, Rutter was sold. Brendan Aronson started the season on the left.
Yeah.
Rutter was sold 5 days later. Brendan Aaronson's in the number 10. And
Rutter wasn't a 10. We have to remember, until last season, Rutter had hardly played as a 10. He'd been either a second striker, sometimes a winger, sometimes up top on his own. We just kind of got. It just kind of naturally became a 10 for us because we saw how good he was, from deeper rather than playing further up the pitch. But
Lorcan said for me it's Farke's decision making and timing. Yes, we need rotation, but it does it at crazy times. Leaves Peru in for 5 goalless games and then rotates when he bags 2. Sub Solomon when we needed him. It does feel like even the Solomon substitution was it against Blackburn. He was the best, wasn't he? He was the highlighter, and I think
this is inexplicable.
This is going to be a continuing thing within midfield. You're going to get the good and the bad with Farke, aren't you? We know what his traits are, his tendencies are now. I've been screaming for a midfield 3 for about 18 months with him now. I know I'm not going to see it now in certain games, although I think that would help Leeds, but. it feels like when it comes to substitutions, I mean, we've got 9 goals from substitutes, but I have to say it's a lot of the quality coming off the bench. When you're looking sometimes and you see maybe even Natter on the bench, Nonto, Ramazani, Joseph or Peru, it feels like the quality coming off the bench against some of these sides with 20, 25 minutes to go. It'd be crazy if you weren't getting, 9 goals at this stage from substitution. So with the greatest respect, I don't know how much you can apply that to Daniel Farke. I think that's just his way of virtue, really. So, I mean, what is, with regards to Lorcan, it does feel like we're talking about the players, we're talking about scenarios, but there's one man who's captain of the ship right now, and there needs to be a couple of changes, even though we're at the top of the table.
Yeah, I think sort of briefly, just getting back to the Solomon situation, playing in the 10. I mean, you probably remember playing as a footballer, Conor. You always had a preferred position, and it just makes me wonder. Obviously, as a lone player, and Tottenham have probably got certain stipulations in place. I don't know how this thing works with lone players, but maybe they're sort of stipulating that they want to see Solomon playing in exactly the position that he's playing in, and maybe he feels comfortable playing in that position. He's going to give the best performance for Leeds playing over in that wide position. I don't know, but that may be some consideration. Farke's maybe having to play him out there because he might play in the middle. I completely agree with you. I think he'd be a great number 10. It's whether he feels like he can get the best out of him in that position. I'm not sure. I think he'd be brilliant at it. I agree.
But we have seen Nonto in the number 10 this season.
We have, but he's our player, So I just don't know. I don't know how overreaching these loan agreements get to, and whether Tottenham are just saying, "There you go, he's your player for the season. Do what you will with him," or whether they're expecting him to excel in certain positions. I really don't know, and how much influence he's got over playing where he wants to play on the pitch. Don't know.
Well, John said, just quickly here, Oscar, before you make your point, great teams are always built from the back, starting with the only man who can handle the ball. Great backup like you have tonight. Shout out to you, John, Robiners Bay Whites. Oscar?
Yeah, John.
Well, I think the 10 has become a big discussion point, isn't it, in terms of in this transfer market? And I think it will, alongside the goalkeeper. I think that'll be the biggest area that's going to get spoken about as a 10 position. But I look at it like this. I think everyone in the bottom half of the Premier League is looking at a number 10. We're looking at someone to really unlock defences and make things happen for him. And looking at Everton at this moment in time, struggling to score goals, probably looking at number 10. There's going to be a lot of competition. So if an Incisio comes available, I'm not sure Brighton would drop him down to the Championship, because I think there'd be so many other options for him to play. You look at
Buonanotte at Leicester, don't
you?
Yeah,
exactly that. Buonanotte at Leicester. El Canoes at Leicester as well. These teams at the bottom end of the Premier League will probably hoover up the players that are dropping from like the higher end of the Premier League. I really do believe that, and I think that's where you got to look at it from the Leeds point of view and say, even if you're looking at number 10s at this level, I've got to be honest, there's not been that many number 10s that have kind of impressed me this season. Finazans, I think, has had a good season. I think the only one who will look at and think, wow, he's one of those players you'd love to see in your team is Chapakadze at Watford. I think he's an amazing player. But again, that's not going to happen in January when Watford are pushing for the playoffs. He's not going to leave for a Championship club. So I just think number 10 is such a specialist position. I think it's the reality of Championship clubs. Yes, you can point to Pablo Hernandez in a Leeds shirt and Buendia in a Norwich shirt, but they're more exceptions. They're more kind of exceptions to the rule rather than the norm for me.
Buendia wasn't really a 10, was it? With Steeperman.
Exactly, he was playing out wide as well. So you don't see that many high. I mean, how much better Jorginho Rutter was last season than every single other 10 in the league was quite telling. And I just think that is the reality of the league, that any good 10s tend to get, with high technical quality, get snapped up by the Premier League. So that is an issue we're going to have to face. I do think if we're going to go into the 10 market, I'm not convinced, funnily enough, going on to the Buendia topic in terms of, if Villa do let him go out on loan, I'm not sure that's the best answer for us because he's injury prone, in terms of he's not actually played much football the last 3 years. These are the types of signings we freaked out about, in terms of when we made them under Victor Orta and Radrizzani. So to me, I'm not sure that's a smart play. I really don't. I'm not sure Buendia, listen, I think Buendia fully fit is an amazing footballer who's too good for the Championship, but is Buendia fully fit? It's no good being half fit because we've seen the damage that can cause. When you bring in a player who's half fit, the parent club's kind of pressuring us to play him. It just doesn't work in that kind of respect. So I think Buendia's actually quite a risky signing in terms of the cost it would involve as well. I think there's far better deals to be done. And I think if you offer me the choice between Buendia or a goalkeeper, without doubt, even if it costs more to get a goalkeeper, I'd go for the goalkeeper option at this moment in time.
No doubt.
I think it's gonna save you. I think a new goalkeeper would save you more points than what you get as a contributor from a number 10 position. Because I think a lot of it as well, even if a number 10 came in, Harrison's not just going to come out. We know that with Farke. Harrison's not just going to come out. It won't happen. I think it's going to be a period of time. Whereas potentially if a goalkeeper came in, as Dad's quite rightly said, you acclimatise very quickly. It's not too bad. I was mentioning Carl Rushworth, who did wonders at Swansea. He's actually at Hull right now on loan from Brighton, hasn't played a minute. He's going to be recalled by Brighton. Look, he's coming back from his injury. It's fine. He'll be absolutely fine back from injury. As a goalkeeper, it's okay. It's okay coming back from an injury, and his rehab's apparently bang on point, and he's ready to be loaned out. There's several clubs after him. He was a top 4 keeper last season with Swansea, so it just feels like an open goal with Leeds United. And once again, I think that the whole fan base are going to be. There's going to be a lot of if they don't go out and do a goalkeeper now, I think and especially if Darlow doesn't at least get in over this guy in between the sticks, I think there's going to be a lot of questions to what's going on at the minute, which is mental.
Think of the pressure these goalkeepers are under for us now. Meslier.
He can't handle the pressure, Oscar, though. He can't handle the pressure. We know that with Ilan Meslier.
The pressure's going to be ramped up another level now that he's made these mistakes. We're in the middle of the January transfer window. I mean, from a Daniel Farke point of view, the time that those mistakes at Hull couldn't have happened at a worse time. The fact that we're in the middle of a transfer window, the fact that there is an option to bring in another goalkeeper, Carl Darlow, when he has played, again, only for Wales, has actually played relatively well in those games. So, there's a lot of pressure, and it's going to be pressure on Meslier. It's going to be pressure on Darlow if he does come in for Meslier, because I don't think, I can't speak for everyone, but I'm not sure I'd be happy with Carl Darlow, even if he was playing for Meslier for the rest of the season. I think we can still do better than that in terms of, if you look at the rest of the team, we've arguably got, I'm not saying we have, but arguably got the best players or some of the best players in the league in pretty much every position. I honestly do believe that. I think if you look at every single position, you can make a case for Bogle being the best right back in the league. You can make a case for Rodon and Strout being the best centre back pairing in the league. I think you go across the team and then you look at goalkeeper and you say that is the part of the pitch where we're not the envy of the rest of the league, where we're kind of behind the other three.
Yeah, well, the Burnley contributor said it earlier, didn't he? He absolutely said that. He said that's our Achilles heel. Burnley have got it right. They've got a good keeper at the back. They're absolutely solid. And he's very, very confident as a supporter that Burnley are going to occupy one of those 2 spots, and rightly so. Because he understands that they rarely lose games. They don't concede goals. They rarely lose games. It's simple. We close that gap up at the back and we don't lose games. We pick points up by default.
Well, I don't understand how you can't be confident with sort of a setback 5. That, by the way, isn't their setback 5. I think Oscar Bayer is going to be coming back in as in early year. Who Bayer dad was with them when they got promoted, and he was an excellent centre back. They've got a few others coming back as well. Burnley are almost ready set at the back. I mean, I was watching the game of the week and they weren't special, Burnley, and the gentleman here will say that they weren't special. I don't think Burnley have been special all this season, but Dad, you're quite right. You concede 9 goals. They are on the trajectory to do the Chelsea Premier League title winning goals conceded, which I think was 15. You actually concede them going through this season and almost conceding it potentially a little bit more, but 15, 16, 17 goals. They're on tally for it. It's ridiculous.
They're conceding 1 goal in every 3 games.
But over halfway through the season, that is insane.
Unbelievable. It's unbelievable.
Yeah. Listen, we've had the laugh about Scott Parker at times this season. I still think when I watch Burnley, it's more exciting watching paint dry. But when you look at it, you can see 1 goal in 3. You don't need to score many goals to win.
They're a crap team to watch. They are a crap team to watch. But at the end of the day, it doesn't matter, does it? It really doesn't matter.
The trouble is, if we say we're a rubbish team to watch, but if they add one magic player into that front 4, all of a sudden you look at Burnley and think they could go on like a 10 to 12 game winning run. If you look at that defence and then add a magician at top.
Oscar Benson's coming back, mate. Benson's coming back.
Well, that's a big issue for the rest of the league.
And Sarmiento's only just come back as well. He's only just come back. So, I mean, Dad, just to get Lorcan's extra comment in here, I think it's an interesting one. But just go on to your point as well. But he says, I agree that Darlow isn't the answer. But if you look at the types of crazy enforced errors Meslier has, I'm convinced Darlow. This is exactly, I think Lorcan's got that spot on. This is what I was trying to convey in the video. People were saying, Conor, you were saying this about Darlow, that about Darlow. I don't go back on that. I'm not going round and saying Darlow is a top goalkeeper, a starting 11 goalkeeper. But what I will say is, Carl Darlow right now, there is like, what are we comparing him against? A goalkeeper who, 40-50% of the time makes it arguably a mistake. And that's maybe giving him a bit of credit 40-50% of the time. We could be looking at the 60-70% range when you look at all the goals we've conceded this season, because there's a genuine argument for 70% of those goals. I'm not even kidding. There's a compilation of them. For 70% of those goals, he could be culpable. I know it's subjective, but he could be culpable in your eyes. So anyway, Dad, sorry, what were you saying?
Yeah, you're going to have the most prolific offensive team coming up against the most prolific defensive team in a couple of weeks' time. That's already happened once this season. It was an awful lot earlier on this season, and they came out on top. So it's going to be very interesting to see how it works out. I would suggest that if we get a decent keeper in, or even Darlow, for example, then we're going to come away with a win at Burnley. I really do believe that. If we can keep it really nice and tight at the back, we've got the ammunition, we've got the artillery to get us through that game. But we really do need to sort it out between the sticks. It's obvious, Daniel.
And I think it's crazy as well, because you're getting all Andy's just said there as well. He said, we are well-disciplined, athletic. Cullen protects the back five very well, getting better going forward. Fee to come back. We'll be in it all the way, I think, second edging out. But it's crazy, isn't it? We're top of the division. Of course, we're top of the division. Statistically, we're the best team right now. But it is funny, isn't it? When you do talk to, a lot of sane Sheffield United fans and Burnley fans in particular, when I've spoken to a few of them, they are still very keen that Leeds will win this division. And ultimately, we're not talking as if we're fifth in the division right now. We are still talking like we're first, and we're still positive, because we're talking about all the outfield players, lads, and we're talking about Leeds have got so many options. We've got so many quality players. I think it does boil down a lot to the manager and what he's going to do going forward now, because it feels right now, I feel personally, the goalkeeper should have been dropped against Portsmouth. He wasn't, because I know it was the first game of the season, but I think there was enough from last season to suggest that he's not had a good campaign. I think coming into this season, if it happened again, which it did against Portsmouth, I think he should have been dropped then. Sunderland, I could not believe he wasn't dropped, but then I could believe he wasn't dropped as well. I think right now the pressure is so high that he simply has to manage that situation well, Daniel Farke, and drop Carl Darlow, not just for the Harrogate game, but for the Sheffield Wednesday. It's a big game for Carl Darlow, but Carl Darlow is 34 years of age. He's played for Nottingham Forest, Newcastle, Hull City, Wales. He's played in big games. He's not a little boy. So I think this is the conversation we've got to start having now, and there's got to be some serious movement when it comes to rumours of Leeds getting a new goalkeeper if Carl Darlow isn't the answer.
And do you know what, Conor? Sheffield Wednesday are going to be absolutely loving this because it's Leeds on a Saturday at 12 o'clock. It's midday. We don't like these early starts. They're going to be absolutely on this, and their manager is going to be all over set plays on Melier, all over it.
Yeah. I think that's the one, and I guess it's the weakness, isn't it, Oscar? I think the rest of the team, I'm not being deluded. I'm really positive with Leeds going forward this season. I think we look a very, very good outfit, a very athletic, physical. I think the Gila Volki signing was a really nice addition.
Yeah,
I think right now in midfield we're looking bulky. I think the wingers, we've got options everywhere. The strikers, we've got 2 available strikers pretty much throughout the entire season. The back line has been excellent, really. Bogle's been a really superb addition. We're looking at the bench every single week and thinking, right, well, the other 2 haven't got this, or maybe the other one. I think Burnley have still got stacked bench, to be honest, when you look at it. But it just is. And we have to say it yet again, just the outlier. And we sought that outlier, and we all must believe that Leeds United will not only go up, but we will win the league. I think that's it. And we look at the goals prevented, the save percentage, all these metrics that are going against Illan Melier now. You even increase that by 10, 15%. He doesn't have to be the best, but at least put him in the top 8. Put him in the top 8, not the top 5, I'm saying, the top 8, and we'll be okay.
Well, exactly that. Look at the 2 most successful teams in England in the last sort of 10 years or so. Man City and Liverpool. Man City went through a season of Claudio Bravo basically throwing the ball into his own net every single game, pretty much. They brought in Edison, and then they won the title by a record-breaking amount of points. Liverpool went from finishing sort of 4th, 5th under Klopp, maybe the odd cup run, this and that, but never really not winning anything, in fact. All of a sudden, they sign Alisson. They win everything, literally everything they can win. They go, I think, was it 99 points and then 97 points back to back? The difference a goalkeeper makes, those teams didn't become great teams overnight. it was the difference the goalkeeper made to those teams. I'm not saying that will happen with Leeds because we're not going to be able to afford Alisson Becker and Edison from Man City, but that bigger difference is telling, and it does show that even the best teams in England needed, reliability in between the sticks. You can't win games. You can't over a long league season, a 46-game season. You need solidity across the whole team. And yes, we might say Burnley are boring to watch, but to be fair to them, they have got reliable 7 out of 10 performers across the pitch, and I think we do in pretty much almost every position. Apart from if you look at the centre forward position and up top, both ends of the pitch, both boxes, I think that's where we are getting a little bit of inconsistency, and not a little bit of inconsistency, a lot of inconsistency, and it's not enough at this moment in time. And I totally agree with what Ian said. Ian said at the start of the video, this team should be dominating the league, and I still believe that. I still believe this team can dominate the league. Yes, we're over halfway into the season, but we've still got 20 games to go. And I think if we make the right additions, 1 or 2 additions, there's no reason why this team can't storm it. I really do believe that. I don't think we're going to do that because I think it's going to be incredibly tight. I think the other teams around us are going to strengthen as well. And that does worry me that, if you look at the other teams, in terms of obviously people like Enzo Lafite getting mentioned, Brereton Diaz, they're looking at similar parts of the pitch to us at the top end of the pitch. But as Ian also said, in terms of in goal, it's quite a simple one for us. You just need to put in a goalkeeper in there who will make saves. It's not even like outstanding saves. If we had Rob Green from 2016, I keep going back to Rob Green. That is the last time I felt with a Leeds team we've had a goalkeeper who will save us more points than he'll.
That's how bad. That's how bad when we're looking at Kiko Casilla, when we're looking at Joel Robles, who there was certain, I know he came in.
Robles was all right, to be fair.
No, but he was all right. But then you look at Christopher Klaassen, you can go all the way back. The goalkeeper recruitment at Leeds United aside.
You're forgetting the GOAT there, Conor, Felix Vijvold as well.
Oh, Jesus. But this is it. It was being absolutely turgid, the goalkeeper recruitment. And for me, it's negligence because they clearly don't see, or they're not doing enough. They're not doing enough to get the right goalkeepers in. And then they're not being proactive enough when the goalkeepers are doing what the goalkeepers are doing at Leeds United, because there's been a litany of terrible goalkeepers at this club.
Well,
and sorry, Oscar. I mean, the worrying thing is
another one.
What's that? Yeah. Okay. So the worrying thing here is that we're looking at Burnley, we're looking at Sheffield United, we're looking at Sunderland, and it would appear that they've got their keepers sorted out. They've got good keepers at the back, and they're pretty solid. So they're looking at how else can we improve? Where are the weaknesses on the pitch here that can really make the difference between now and the end of the season? And they're strengthening those areas. It's logical, isn't it? Yeah. Looking at the team, thinking, right, where's it going right? Where's it going wrong? Why aren't we doing that?
Silvestri, another one. God, Lonergan. Oh, Lonergan and Rachub.
He's still going, isn't he? Lonergan is still, I'm sure.
I remember Lonergan. I thought Lonergan was actually a bright spark in a very dull time, to be honest.
Yeah. He was first spell, he was all right, but second spell, he came back when he was about 44, I think, when he came back in the second spell.
Well, I guess we're still top of the league, aren't we? Leeds are still top of the league, and that's how we've got to look at it right now. We've still got. Yeah. I mean, it feels like, after the Wednesday game, I think Burnley's coming up pretty quickly, but I think that's maybe a game, obviously, you're looking at and you can take points off the other side. It feels like right now, when it comes to goals, it feels like we're the only team who are actually going to score against Burnley because we've scored the most goals in the division by a country mile. And it is going to be yin against yang, as we've said, but they've got Sheffield Wednesday coming up. It feels like they've got to win that with the Blackburn slip up and the Hull slip up. And there's got to be some changes, it feels. I think Farke will change, but just an answer from you both. Do you genuinely think he's going to switch Darlow in for Meslier? I personally just can't see it. The chat's saying there's, we did a poll on it. There's 61% saying no, 38% saying yes. Or does it depend on what happens at Harrogate? If he has a clean sheet, I don't know.
I think it's more likely a new goalkeeper comes in altogether than Darlow starting against Meslier. I genuinely do believe that. I'm not saying it's something I agree with. I just don't see Darlow starting over Meslier at any real point. Unless there's another game against Wednesday where it's a similar one to Hull. I don't see it.
And I've got
I mean,
got
look at John Burrow's situation.
Oscar as well. I don't think my dad's seen this. I know you will have done, but Dad, you might have to get your specs on for this. But this is just the immediate reaction. I know you've spoken about this a lot, Dad, and Oscar, we've spoken about it as well. It's the other players having confidence in Eli Mele, and that's another big thing. You know, whether or not he's whether or not he's passing it back to him, whether or not it's this, like we've spoken on Generation Leeds about Junior Firpo walking up the tunnel, and Leeds fans actually saying that's harsh on Eli Mele, which I literally couldn't believe. I just felt it was such loser mentality. But once again, we'll just flash it up in the center of the screen here. When a picture tells 1,000 words, and Oscar, you love seeing this one. But there you go. It's just coming up now, Dad. But people in the chat as well, some of you might not have seen that if you've been at work today or if you're not on social media. But here it is. It is just the Leeds players' reaction. And it just tells... It speaks volumes, really, doesn't it? It's quite a powerful image, that one. You get them even when Rothwell and Perot, who are quite demure players, just turning round almost, or just shouting at him in disbelief.
You don't enjoy seeing that, to be fair. Even if you don't, that's a tough thing to see as a Leeds fan.
Yeah. Was that the second goal, Conor?
That was the second.
Yeah, I think it was the second goal. Yeah,
it was the second one. Yeah.
I agree, Oscar. You don't like to see that, because it's a human reaction, isn't it? At the end of the day, those you could say that players themselves needed to look at themselves a little bit harder. That they could have maybe put him up, but I suppose over the 25 games before, or 24 games, whatever we're on now, they feel as though they've put us in really good positions to see out games and pick up the points, and to see this happen again, and then again, and then again in one game, I can understand that reaction. None of us want to see it. We want to be unified as a team. Anyway, I know we're coming to the end of this. Blimey, it's like it's a funeral. It's like we're at a funeral, isn't it? Here, it's a bizarre situation. You think we're third bottom instead of being, sat on top of the league. We're in a great position. I think we're all just in this frame of mind because of last season. That need to get straight up and the outcome of last season, and knowing how imperative as a club it is for us to get up this season. And we're all fans. We all feel the pain. I'm sure the players feel the pain as well. Farke, I don't know. He's a journeyman, isn't he? He'll get a job somewhere else after Leeds. I don't know. But for us, it means everything. And this is why we're bleeding our hearts out at times like this, even though we are still at top of the league, because we know 26 games in, there's 3 points between 4 teams at the top. We know it's going to be pretty much like that in another 20 games time, and we're just trying to find out the best way forwards to give ourselves the best chance of being in that top 2 at the end. And this is why we have been the way we've been for the last hour or so. You'd think we were heading down instead of heading up, but it's all meant, and it all comes from the best possible place, doesn't it?
Does indeed. As I say, Leeds top of the division. Everybody, it's come from it. It's hard when you've lost the 3-1 lead, isn't it? Like the way we've lost it, and it seems to be a culmination of things right now. So I'd say we'll leave it there, everybody. I guess let's get your Harrogate predictions in and your Sheffield Wednesday predictions in. So did you give me an answer there? Do you think, like, just straight answer, yes or no? Do you think he'll drop Mele for Sheffield Wednesday?
He'll obviously Darlow. It's come at a perfect time for Farke. Absolutely perfect time, because he was always going to play Darlow anyway.
Yeah.
So Darlow will start against Harrogate. It'll be Mele against Wednesday for me.
Oscar, do you reckon? Do you disagree or agree with that?
I agree. So unless we sign a goalkeeper, I don't see how Mele doesn't start Wednesday.
Yeah. Fair enough. Right, okay. I'll tell you what, we'll move on from Harrogate and we'll go straight to the Wednesday score without any. Or should we do Harrogate? I just don't really know. Don't really know what lineup it's going to be, to be honest.
FA Cup and Leeds against lower league opposition. It's just.
I'm going to be bullish. I'm going to say 5-0 Leeds.
5-0 Leeds. Okay. Yeah. Harrogate 0 Leeds. Leeds at Harrogate. To be honest, it's actually, I should have organised this a little bit, shouldn't I? Get to Harrogate. I love Harrogate. It's a good night out. But I'm on dry January, so. Oscar, what are you going for?
I'll go 3-0 Leeds.
3-0 Leeds. Okay. And I'm going to go with a very, very comfortable in the middle. Harrogate 0, Leeds 4. And let's see a couple of debuts there. It'd be nice, or debuts, I should say, just some inclusions of other players. Chef Wednesday, I don't think much is going to change. They might bring in a few bodies, but let's be honest, it doesn't really affect us. Home game, big game, always takes me back to that Bielsa game, of which I think Millwall drew with Sheffield United and Leeds beat Wednesday, and I think we closed in on them, or we might have even toppled them at that point. I can't remember, but Oscar, what are you going with, mate? Leeds, Sheffield Wednesday.
I rate Danny Role a lot, to be fair. But it's Sheffield Wednesday. A tough game, that one. I'll go 2-1 Leeds. I think it'll be a really, really, really good game of football, though. I think they'll have a go, unlike many teams that have come to Ellen Road this season. I reckon 2-1 Leeds.
Yep. Okay. 2-1 Leeds for Oscar. Dad?
Yeah, I think we'll come out on top, Conor. I think it's going to be really tight. I think it's going to be a nervy game. I think we'll just get over the line. I'm expecting us to beat them 1-0. Yeah,
I'm going to go with a 1-0 as well. 1-0, I think. I completely agree. I think it's going to be tight, but we'll get over it and just keep the ball away. Keep the ball away. It feels like it's the tactic now, doesn't it? But guys, thank you so much for joining. Make sure you like the video. Let us know in the comment section. Me and Oscar, if you enjoyed the old boy being on the video. I know a lot of you guys enjoy him being on. He's on Generation Leeds, very, very regular as well on our Patreon. But yeah, him and Oscar get along well, so it's always nice as well, not having that splitting American in the chat. Hey, Oscar, I know he was splitting your hairs. So, but yeah, guys, it's been an absolute pleasure, and we'll see you on the other side. Cheers.